they're almost certainly going outside the family finally for the first time in 65 years. Kevin, who are they going to get?
It's a great question, and as you said, the family aspect is probably the most interesting part of this, in the sense that I think there is a perception that North Carolina is the best job in college basketball. You can certainly make the case for it, but they haven't had a real search to know, right? Like
No.
we've never once gone through this and said, okay, so who actually would take Carolina? We've never gotten to that point. I do think we nearly got there with Mark Few the last time around. I think it was very close, and if North Carolina had been a bit more patient, they may have gotten him. But he was coaching deep into that tournament. That being said, I do not think Mark Few is the head coach this time around. I think he's too close to retirement. Look, I think the swing you will hear most about is Billy Donovan. The Bulls are not quite in disarray, but they are drifting aimlessly through the NBA with no clear path to contention. Billy's 60. He's probably not going to be the guy that leads a long rebuild. I don't think he's getting fired in Chicago, from what my NBA sources tell me, although I'm sure we could tap in Chris Mannix for help on that regard. But I think the thing to remember with Billy is he hated recruiting back when recruiting was you sit around and you hang out with the kid and you talk to his family and he hated the nonstop of it. And I do think the nonstop will be annoying to him if he comes back to college. But he is the rare example of someone who did not like the college landscape, and the college landscape maybe being a little bit more Billy friendly, right? I mean, now he can hire a GM that can handle a lot of the roster construction stuff. He'll have to get on the phone with the kid eventually, or the agent eventually, to assuage some fears. But like, Carolina will sell itself. Whoever's running the roster construction arm will sell itself. We'll be able to sell it pretty effectively, and I would imagine they'll have great candidates. And Billy Donovan would be by far the best X and O coach in college basketball tomorrow if he walked into the sport. Like, everybody should be really, really scared of North Carolina if they can pull off Billy Donovan. I'm not saying it's getting done, but I do think that is going to be the top target. And then you have all the sitting star college coaches, right? Tommy Lloyd at Arizona. Could you get him? TJ Otzelberger, his buyout's manageable at Iowa State. He seems to have a great relationship with Jamie Pollard. He loves Ames. I don't know if he loves Ames so much. And if he did, he probably wouldn't have moved his buyout from something like $18 million to $4 million in his last contract extension. I think Todd Golden and Nate Oates are probably not the characters that North Carolina would traditionally embrace. I would also tell you that those two guys, maybe stylistically, would be perfect for what North Carolina wants. The issue with them, they both have massive buyouts. Both would be 8-figure decisions. I believe it would cost something like $16 million to get Todd Golden out of his contract right now. I don't think North Carolina's paying that. I just don't think that's overly realistic. So I have a hard time believing it drops past that type of group of names. If it does, I think you start hearing about maybe a Mark Byington at Vanderbilt. The floor would probably be Josh Schertz from St. Louis. I don't think we get to that point, but if we did, there would be a layup. They would hire him, and he'd probably do quite well because you'd give him great resources, and he's a pretty darn good ball coach. But I think the name you will hear come into focus early on is Billy Donovan, and we'll see how real that gets, I think, in a hurry. But he has rebuffed plenty of college students before. I think the landscape has made it more feasible now, and the Bulls' situation is maybe less stable than it had been.
Well, I think that too is, we've seen these last couple of blue blood searches. We saw it at Kentucky, we saw it in Indiana, we've seen it at multiple places where it's almost a little bit of a humbling for a lot of these programs as they do go out there and search, whether it's buyouts that have been prevented in terms of actually getting the guy that they would ultimately want, to where who actually is the right fit. I think it has been a little bit humbling, and to Pat's earlier point about hiring outside the family, like, it's not lost on certainly me, who's been around the program in the last couple of weeks, and others, that they're essentially trying to blow up the Dean Dome right now. And the whole stadium situation there at North Carolina has definitely led to a lot of fractures, I would say. Not only in terms of the booster base, but what those at the school want and would like to pursue. I think that's kind of hovering over this entire search as well. And maybe that's a good thing if you're talking about opening up the wallet and going after some of those guys who do have some of the massive buyouts. So that is another factor. Like you said, if it's Josh Schertz, like I know it might not be well received to hire the St. Louis coach, but like that would be a great fit, for what North Carolina needs, especially if you can bring in somebody who has some strong ties to the roster building. Like TJ would be great. And certainly that would make a lot of sense. That would kind of tick off the boxes, especially if he can get, Iowa State into the Elite Eight or further. That'd be like, all right, easy done. Everybody's happy. We can kind of move forward. He would be great in terms of roster construction at North Carolina, especially with the resources they would be able to provide. It's just kind of like, they're just in a difficult, position, just in terms of the timing. Like it definitely would have been greater if Hubert could have, made the case to come back and you do the search actually next year. But you have multiple ADs at this point are in the building. You have a school president who has already put their hands on in terms of the football search. You have really just everything going on there in Chapel Hill. Like it just contributes to I think factors, if you would loosely term it that, involving the search. But hopefully if they end up with somebody like Josh Schertz, all right, it's job well done, and you're moving forward with Carolina. But there's a lot of other things at play here.
I don't think they're getting to Josh Schertz. I think it's going to be done before then with somebody who's accomplished much more, and I love Josh Schertz. But there is a bit of a battle for the soul of North Carolina going on right now. Maybe that's a little bit too dramatic, but what we're seeing in terms of going outside the family here, what we're hearing about the Dean Dome, and building something completely different and off campus. North Carolina has done things a certain way for a long time. And it's now reached a point, we reached it really with Bill Belichick, where it's like, okay, things are different, and there are different voices being heard and different people carrying the day. And that's going to now extend into the basketball situation. But I think at the end of the day, this is not a job where a lot of people are looking outside saying, well, what's our alignment? No, they're saying, that's North Carolina, man. Give me that job. And I think if you get Billy Donovan, and I had always heard this when he was at Florida, Florida was not worried about losing him to anywhere other than the NBA or North Carolina. And then I heard when he was in the NBA, the only place he might want to leave to come back was North Carolina. So if you can get Billy Donovan, who's one of the greatest coaches in recent college basketball history, if having last coach in 2014 is recent, I think it is, go get him. Go get him. This will work. Kevin, you said, I mean, the way the game is constructed now, I don't think it would be uncomfortable for him or something he couldn't operate in. Start with him. Tommy Lloyd, I think, would be sitting out there as a very nice option too. He's like Mark Few, but he's younger. He's on top of his game. I think there's a lot to like there. North Carolina is going to be fine. It's just the tension points are real, I think, as far as where the soul of the program, I guess, is going.